hosting the Veterans for Peace Chapter 72 office, which is in the basement here. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to thank VFP Chapter 72 for helping to pull this together and for all the great work you do in Portland. Education Without Borders gave a very generous donation to the Golden Rule. We also have co-sponsors. Our local co-sponsors include No Nukes Northwest, Alliance for Democracy Oregon. And want to give a special thanks to Nancy Newell, Catherine Kendall, and Malcolm Chaddock, who did a lot of work to pull this event together. And all the others who've helped. And then last but not least, KBOO Community Radio is a co-sponsor. That's KBOO Community Radio 90.7 FM. And they did a great job putting PSAs out over the last 10 days and having several of us on for interviews, and we really appreciate that. Veterans for Peace loves community radio, and we appreciate KBOO's support. We're going to launch into the program here. We have 6 speakers, and our first speaker, kind of our keynote speaker, Harvey Wasserman. Many of you have heard Harvey and speak over the years. He's a long-time opponent of nuclear power and a leading advocate for the crazy idea that we can get our power from the sun. So, with no further ado, I'll ask Harvey Wasserman.
A place to be. I'm really, really honored. I got to spend 3 hours today coming down the river on the Golden Rule. And I was really disoriented when it ended because I thought that was all of life. It was like I disappeared into that. I'm going to pass this out. One thing, I always love to get email addresses if you're game for being on my Solartopia list or any other lists. I'd really appreciate it. So if you'll take this, David, that would be great. I do have a timer there, so let me grab this. Not on the agenda, which is the election. I live in, have been living for many years in Columbus, Ohio. My good buddy Danny Friedman is here from Columbus, Ohio. We've known each other since the previous century, let's put it that way. And as many of you know, Hillary and Donald appear to have cinched their nominations. I am hoping that Bernie will run with Jill Stein, and I've actually written her a letter that if Bernie will run with her, that she become a Lutheran. Because I don't think the country will elect 2 Jews on the same ticket. I don't know how she'll respond to that. I am technically the Secretary of Energy of the Shadow Green Party. Jill is a wonderful person, and I'm going to keep it nonpartisan, but I will be voting for her in Ohio. I love Bernie, and Jill is considerably less grumpy than Bernie, I will tell you. Absolutely true. I got involved with the election protection issue, and I do want to start with this because without democracy, we don't end nuclear power, we don't end nuclear war, and we don't get the Solartopia, which is a green-powered Earth. So I'm going to talk about elections and then stopping nuclear power and where we're going to go once we do stop nuclear power. I live in, as I said, Central Ohio. I always wondered why I was there. And in 2004, we've watched firsthand the theft of the presidential election. I will say right now that the one great thing that we can say about George W. Bush is that the United States, the people of the United States never elected him president. The 2000 election was stolen with the complicity of Jeb Bush, El Jefe of Florida at the time, who disenfranchised more than 90,000 mostly black and Hispanic people in an election that was decided by 537 votes. And in the course of that election, a woman, that was revealed, by the way, by Greg Palast, who had a good buddy of mine, a good reporter, who has a very good piece up at Reader Supported News, which runs most of my stuff and can use your support from time to time. And Greg showed in 2000 that these 90,000 plus people had been stripped from the voter rolls. And in the course of the election, a woman named Bev Harris, who I just met for the first time actually, showed that computer manipulation had been used to flip 20,000 votes in Volusia County in the middle of the vote counting in 2000. So we call it now, the technique is now strip and flip, strip the voter rolls And then if you can't win that way, flip the electronic vote counter. And I will tell you that had Greg not done his reporting in 2000, and Bev not looked at the electronic vote count in 2000, nobody would have known it happened. I mean, it's kind of frightening to think about that two people were really between us and total ignorance on what happened in 2000. I want to strongly fault Al Gore and then John Kerry for not fighting over this, because they both walked away from the election. And in 2004, in Ohio, when Ford, as you know, decided in the Electoral College that George W. Bush will become president, and all these wonderful things like the Iraq War and 9/11 followed. In 2004, John Kerry handily beat George Bush in Ohio. And what happened was, prior to the election, there were innumerable methods used to strip the voter rolls. They took out 300,000 people off the voter rolls, at least, in an election that was decided by 118,775. That's the number that's been implanted in my brain, unfortunately. And we monitored what they did. They did hundreds of things to prevent people from voting. And of course, black people, for example, in the precinct where I grew up in Driving Park in central Ohio, it took black people 5 hours to vote. And where I voted in Bexley, which is a mile away, it took 5 minutes on the college campus where I teach. And these things went on. We know they went on. We call them a Jim Crow method of stealing elections. But that wasn't enough in Ohio in 2004. At 12:20 at night, the CNN did a flash screen, and they showed that John Kerry was winning Ohio by 4.2%, more than 200,000 votes in a state where 5.5 million people were voting. And suddenly there was a blackout, and there was a so-called glitch, this term glitch. There's two key words in electronic election theft: glitch and recalibration. When you hear those two words, you know the election is being stolen. So at 2 a.m. in the morning, the glitch ended, and suddenly, from being ahead 4.2%, Kerry was behind 2.5%. It was a 6.7% shift, more than 300,000 votes. And that's how George W. Bush got a second term. So I'm not going to go into it too deeply. My co-conspirator, Bob Fitrakis, who is a political scientist, is a good match. I'm a historian. We are together. We live in Central Ohio, but we both vote for the University of Michigan. That's been our bonding. He's from Detroit, and I went to U of M. So you can't survive in Columbus, Ohio, unless you're a Buckeye fan. Except that, so we have like a bomb shelter where we write our stuff. So we put these out. We've written 6 or 7 books now about electronic election theft, and the latest one is called the flip and flip selection of 2016: 5 Jim Crows in electronic election theft. I'm not going to go through the 5 Jim Crows, but you can ask me afterwards. And I do hope I get to meet all of you personally after the talk. That would be really great. But the reality is, we do not have free elections in this country. And after 16 years after 2000, it's going to happen again. It certainly happened with Bernie. I will tell you that I am 100% of the belief that if we were using hand-counted paper ballots in the 2016 primaries, and there was no theft going on, that Bernie would be the nominee of the year. But I won't go too far with that tonight. So we are starting an organization now, having 16 years of proven flipping and stripping of our elections, that is going to focus strictly on hand-counted paper ballots. And what we want is universal, we call it the Ohio Plan, universal automatic registration when you turn 18. Everybody who's 18, you're automatically registered, get a form at your high school or your college or the DMV, the motor vehicles, or Costco, wherever they are, and just send it in and you're registered. No photo ID. A signature is fine. There is no indication whatsoever that people are double voting beyond Ann Coulter, who did it. And what all that's required is a signature. It's a 5-year felony. Nobody double votes. A couple of people maybe here and there, but it's not a significant problem. We want a 4-day national holiday for voting. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. No work. All you do, the polls are open, 12 hours a day, everybody votes. On Saturday, all the non-Jews vote. On Sunday, the Jews vote. Monday and Tuesday, everybody else. And then, and finally, and most importantly, hand-counted paper ballots. There is no reason not to have universal hand-counted paper ballots. Electronic voting machines are perfectly designed to steal elections. That's what they do. Hand-counted paper ballots are done in Germany. They're done in Ireland. Ireland had machines, by the way, got rid of them. Switzerland, Canada, and you know, I'm not sure what the situation is in Oregon, you can tell me, but this is a national movement. We're going to go precinct by precinct, state by state, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and convert the country. Recycle paper ballots or hemp ballots. The hemp ones we'll keep for 2 years, and then you can smoke them. So that's the spiel for getting us a democratic system. It's way more important, by the way, than banning money from politics. We can beat a bad candidate no matter how much money they spend. We can't beat a bad candidate if they're going to strip the voter rolls and flip the electronic vote count. That's where we're going to lose. So, having said all that, let's move on to nuclear power. There's never really been we have shut one nuclear reactor in the United States in an open election, and that was in Sacramento. They had a municipal utility district. And so Rancho Seco, we voted June 6, 1989, I believe it was, to shut, and my God, it shut. What a concept. We had 3 referenda here in Oregon, which had a huge impact, but Trojan did not shut immediately after these referenda, which it should have done. We are now in a situation, and I'm happy to tell you that within the past week, we have had announcements of 4 commercial reactors in the United States shutting down. It's unprecedented. 3 in Illinois, and Unit 1 at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, which was not shut after Unit 2 melted. And I will tell you that me and one other reporter, Anna Mayo, who just recently passed away, were the only 2 journalists crazy enough to go into central Pennsylvania in the year after the accident. And when people tell you that no one was killed at 3 Mile Island, it is one of the worst lies ever told in human history. I spent the worst week of my life in central Pennsylvania, in farmhouses, interviewing people, having them show me their tumors and their lesions, and their asthma and their emphysema and heart attacks and all other deal. 3 Mile Island killed a lot of people. Then Chernobyl killed a lot of people. A lot more people, we believe 1 million people were killed by Chernobyl, and many, many more after that will die after Fukushima. It is a terrifying arc of accidents. We don't want to think about what might come next, okay? And so we have a Columbia Generating Station here in Washington up the river. Me and German and other people have been working on it. He's going to talk in a few minutes. And it's shuttleable. I talked to the man today, the expert, what's his name? Robert McCullough, and he explained to me that the Columbia Generating Station is losing tons of money. And that's what's been driving these reactors into oblivion. You know, there will be no new generation of nuclear power plants. That's BS. It's not going to happen. It's a fantasy. But there are 99 now in the United States. In 1974, Richard Nixon said there would be 1,000 nukes in the U.S. by the year 2000. At the time, there were about 250 online, under construction, or on order. They actually built 130, they actually opened 133, and we're now at 99. So we've shut a substantial number. The number is plummeting fast, but not fast enough, because we now know that commercial reactors can, in fact, explode. The reactors at Fukushima, the 4 reactors that blew up, were General Electric designed reactors. These are not Soviet Chernobyl reactors. These are American designed reactors. I couldn't see that. What's it say?
3 minutes.
Huh?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? You're kidding me. Did I talk that long? Okay, sorry. So we will shut CGS, the Columbia Generating Station. We will do that. It's up to you, though. You need to talk to me afterwards, sign up sheets. They're losing money. That's the key. That's the phrase you want to hear. They are losing money. And it's your money that's coming out of the pockets of the people of the Northwest. And very briefly, we do now have the alternatives. I wrote a book called Solartopia, which describes a green power Earth. The price of photovoltaic cells has been plummeting. Photovoltaic cells, which convert sunlight to electricity, will be the biggest industry in the history of the world. It'll be bigger even than the internet. Every home, every building, every vehicle, every machine on this planet will have photovoltaic cells on it, and they are plummeting in price, as is wind power, and rising in efficiency. This entire region at some point will be powered by wind and solar energy. The race that goes on now is, can we shut the nukes before the next Fukushima? That's what it's all about. The picture is laid out for us. We know where the future is with green power. There is absolutely nothing pie in the sky about it. It is tangible. In California, there are 55,000 people working in the solar industry. That doesn't even count wind. There are many thousands of people in the United States now more working in renewables than in coal, and certainly in oil. We're getting close with gas. So, and these nukes, there's 1,000 people working in each one of these nukes. Every one of them will get jobs in the solar industry if we put in the training programs to make it happen. So it's an absolute honor to have the Golden Rule here. It is proof that we can win these issues. The Golden Rule sailed in '58. 5 years later, in '63, there was an atomic test ban. Unfortunately, it didn't go underground, but those didn't until '91. But the ban on atomic testing that came in part as a result of the sailing of the Golden Rule saved millions and millions of lives. Many of us are alive today, certainly our children and our grandchildren, of which I have 10, by the way, because the Golden Rule sailed and it led to, people say, what's a small ship going to do? Well, we know what a small ship did. It really got people's awareness higher. 1963, Kennedy and Khrushchev signed the test ban. The atmospheric radiation stopped, and people lived. And we're now on the brink of doing this again. We have so much promise with us, so many things we can do, that it's a joy to be here to share this with you. And I hope to talk with you afterwards. And no nukes, everyone. Thank you very much.